scary. All right, so we're gonna take you through a posterior chain type of day today. Kind of like a second leg day, but I'm really focusing more on my glutes, hamstrings. I'm even gonna do a little bit of back because posterior chain is something that gets neglected on a lot of people. Sometimes it's just a leg day, sometimes it's just a back day. Sometimes it's kind of a combination of both. Glutes, hamstrings, calves, back, lumbar erectors, all those. Sometimes when I'm gonna squat, it would be called a ab rollout with an adductor squeeze on a ball. So your adductors and your abs are big time stabilizers when you're trying to squat. So you don't hyperextend or let your knees kind of buckle out. They gotta create kind of like a stabilization system. So by squeezing here, going in and out, we really warm up all those stabilizer muscles. Sometimes when my back feels a little tight and sore, I do this and I create a lot more stability.
You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. Ooh, I've been on the flex since flex on. Neighborhood all in your eardrums. I ain't never scared like Bone Crush. Boy, I got God, don't fear none. My line busy, take no calls. Feels like I don't have no flaws. Snakes in the grass, cuts in the grass, cut those off.
Do you need them?
Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. I'm in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. Ooh, I'm a real one, my day ones. Try to speak up, can't say none. Try to dig dirt, there ain't none. I make the money that saves us.
Scary. Check this out.
Take to the top on the baseline. New car, race on.
Which leg do you think is working more right now?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
The one stabilized?
Yeah. This is a freaking glute exercise. Hip flexion here. Well, my glute is having to stabilize like crazy on that other side. It's fantastic. It's kind of like almost like a hip flexor strengthening exercise. But on the other side, you're actually almost stretching your hip flexor as you contract that glute to stabilize. So, fantastic. You're supposed to have like weak hip flexors, but tight hip flexors. It's a weird situation, but as long as you're going above your knee, above your hip, you're gonna get a lot of that hip flexor like the psoas and the iliacus, not just the other hip flexors that kind of stay below.
Where the booyah, that's a flex. Not human, I am from another planet. I'ma teleport, might vanish. I'ma wake up, do damage. Join them.
I feel this more like glute hamstring than anything. Stabilization leg.
Pick it up. You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Up in my car and the giddy up.
All right, so I made it a personal mission to try to get my hamstrings back in shape a little bit. They never were way out of shape, but I've torn my hamstrings all to pieces and stuff, so I'm gonna hit a couple sets here. And I love this machine because I feel like I get a little bit better leverage. Some of the line leg curls makes my hamstrings just want to cramp like crazy and stuff, and I work those in too, but this one works way better for me. So hit a couple sets.
You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Up in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus.
Thou shall not skip calf day. So I use this little half rep pause method. Jay Cutler was talking about this in the video a long time ago, and I picked it up from him and just been doing it ever since. And I love the way it gets my calves burning. It doesn't take long to get a real serious pump in the calves doing it this way. And another thing I'm thinking about when I'm training calves is kind of treating it like a PNF stretch and activating my tibialis anterior, pulling my toes up towards my shins at the bottom of the rep, trying to get a big stretch, full range of motion. Dorsiflexion is a really important movement that gets restricted on a lot of people, jacks up their mechanics. So why not just use your calf training as kind of a double dip, where you're actually using it as a mobility exercise as well to maintain the mobility in the ankle. So that was it. Basically a posterior chain day. Not as much posterior chain specific, but just trying to throw in some extra glutes, hamstrings. I have hamstring injuries that date way back that I'm always trying to constantly be mindful of and just make sure that they stay strong for the rest of my life. So glutes, hamstrings, posterior chain, again, like I said, really important for the health of your lower back, knees, and just avoiding a lot of injuries. If people had stronger glutes and hamstrings, I think that they'd avoid a ton of lower back pain and orthopedic issues that I see in my office all the time. So I'm gonna be doing more videos like this just to kind of roll through what's going on in my head as I'm in the gym and when I'm working out a certain way or what I'm doing. So just think there's a lot of value there that I'm gonna be able to add to maybe your training, or maybe you're gonna get back into it. You wanna know what's safe from a chiropractor's perspective, or why I might be doing certain things and why I'm not doing other things, just with 8 years of chiropractic experience and seeing a lot of CrossFitters and bodybuilders and people that get injured in the gym from time to time. I was talking to a buddy of mine about this earlier. Whether you go from little tweak to tweak to tweak, let's say you tweak your back in the gym, once every quarter. If you do that for years, okay, I think a lot of people would give up and say, this gym thing is just not for me. I disagree. I think even if you were tweaking your back that often, there's still a ton of benefit. There's still a ton of resilience that you're building over time. And eventually, sometimes those little tweaks just stop happening because your body's finally conditioned and resilient. So don't give up on day in and day out in the gym. It's also like a self-awareness exercise. Certain exercises in the gym that bother you or don't bother you, you got to constantly be mindful of that and just understand that maybe you got to modify, maybe you got to get creative, maybe you got to work around some things a certain way, but giving up on it is just not the answer. So you want to be doing things intelligently. You should be learning how to move. You should be learning how your body does best in certain situations, and everybody's unique. Also, you can challenge yourself by finding certain restrictions, mobility and strength, and but even something that potentially has hurt you in the past doesn't always mean it's going to continue to hurt you, right? So it's a daily or weekly self-awareness exercise where you're constantly learning about yourself, and there's a ton of value in that. Maintaining, I call it efficiency with gravity. Like, life is resisting gravity, so why would we give up on getting better at resisting it? We naturally lose muscle mass over time, and I think that muscle mass is now being researched and established as an organ or a system of organs of longevity. So it's really important to maintain that muscle mass. Full range of motion strength training, I think, is just as good for mobility as it is for building strength. So I'm gonna be putting more stuff like this out in the near future, so stay tuned.
Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drip, yeah, I'm fitted up.